Hello folks, hope you're doing well. I had a walk earlier, well just very recently, not that earlier, just very recently. During that walk we were speaking to God about various things. Yeah. And part of it was from as I say, I spend a lot of time talking to God about things. So, when I talk about the church and stuff like that, what came to mind, the church, they have this new pastor that come over from Tennessee. He's only been there a pretty short time. I think about 6 months, maybe just a bit more. But not much more than that. So, it's early days. Well, one could say it's early days. To me, no. When I say it's early days, how many days do you need? Well, for example, for a church, why can't a church be like a football team? You get a manager going in, and the manager does things a different way, and you see a different result from the players. You suddenly see the players playing really, really well. Chelsea had that with that Tuchel. He came in, and they were miles away from the top four in the Premier League of England, and they finished in the top four and they won the Champions League. He came in and he lifted the team. Everything lifted, started going really well. Why wouldn't that be the case with a church? That was the question I was asking to Father. Why wouldn't that be the way? And God says, how do they appoint people? Are they going to appoint someone that different to the person who was there before? And the answer is typically no. And that's why even over the years, when you've had churches that have had different ministers coming in, that's why you won't see much of a change. You should see change. You should. But if you're being guided by God, put it this way, this church nearly collapsed. Well, according to the people there, it nearly ended up being a dead church to the point where it'd be closed down completely. Okay. So a new person comes in, right? Okay. What would you expect? Well, that's what God was saying to me. What would you expect? If a new person comes in, what would you expect? As in, what would I expect? And my answer was immediate: no change. Not really. You'd expect to see a change with regards to a minister comes in and he's given his time to it. So you expect to see people coming into the church gradually. You'd expect to see that because it's a church, and we've just had COVID. We just had one of the worst times, and within society right now we have depression and mental health far worse than it's been for such a long time. You might have to go back to the plague to see when people were more depressed than they are right now. And so of course people are wandering into churches. But my experience with churches is that when a church replaces a pastor, they replace that pastor with someone who is almost identical to the person who was there before. That tends to be what they do. And, because it's what they know. Because it's what they know, it's comfortable. They're used to someone like that who does things in that sort of a way. And so, and it's been trained by the same sort of Bible college sort of way. That's the accepted way of appointing someone, really, now. You may have a vote in a church, but put it this way, if the church was virtually empty, there wouldn't be much of a vote, would there, at that point in time? So I don't know exactly what happened, but I think it was something to do with the people that were overseeing this church and had been overseeing it for a while, so probably the person who had been the leader before here at some point, he had a role in that. But I say, what are they going to pick? They're going to pick someone who is pretty much them, because their view of how a minister should be is them. Because they're a minister, they're doing things in a certain way. They believe that's the way to do things. If they believe that that's the way to do things, they're going to pick someone just like them. But it was someone who was just like them who brought that church to a point where it nearly, completely and utterly collapsed to the point of closure. So, if you've got the right person, now just look at it from the point of view that if you really do have the right person, I mean the right person who's a perfect fit for that church, the perfect fit for that church to bring that church to where it needs to be with God. So that's going to be pretty much nothing like the people that are there before, because they didn't do it. They weren't able to bring that church to a point where they needed to be with God, to be able to be moving forwards and doing things according to His will and His ways, where they were seeing healings and deliverance and miracles and marvellous things of God happening on a weekly, if not daily basis. They weren't seeing that, so therefore they didn't have the right person. So basically picking someone who was pretty much identical is most likely going to be the wrong person. Most likely. Not a certainty, but most likely. Because, in the end, there could be a subtle difference, and that subtle difference could be the thing that makes all the difference. Could. Do I think that's likely? No. No, but you have to put that in there because it is within the realm of possibilities. That any subtle difference could make a huge difference in what happens in a church. Well, because, even when you talk about football, Tuchel was successful at Chelsea for a while, but then, beginning of this season, he got sacked. He had a slightly bad run with a team that he really had no chance to really get to know. They had replaced a lot of players, and he was still getting used to the team, and the team was still getting used to each other. But the new management got rid of him because they're new management and they pretty much wanted their own man anyway. And the new bloke who's come in was, I don't know, where did he manage before? I've forgotten. It was one of these sort of bottom half of the table clubs that he had managed before. So, is that going to work for Chelsea? Probably not, I think. I don't think it is. Graham Potter it is, isn't it? Yeah. Well, Potter is his son. I'm not sure if his first name is Graham, but I think he'll be sacked. I think he'll be given a season, but I don't think he'll be given much longer than that. You do see this with managers, especially with Chelsea Football Club. You do see this quite a lot. But The reason why I've been saying for so long now that you have to be led, and certainly if you're picking a leader, a minister, you have to be guided by God. All this point about democracy and that the people in church get a vote, no, that isn't biblical, not in any way, shape or form. Well, for example, talking about biblical, talking about church. If you go into a church and you ask someone about marriage, that you've met someone, you think this is the right person for you, how should you proceed? They would probably go on the same lines as the world. You get engaged, you have a long engagement, then you organise the wedding in a church, you buy all the flowers, you do all this, you do all that, you do all this, you do all that. None of that at all is biblical. None of it. The reason why because that just came to mind. That when God was talking to me about marriage, He said, well, marriage isn't any of that. Lose all of that. Yeah, because it's not marriage, it's of the world. All of that is of the world. I've done videos about that before, but it is actually, it's fascinating when you look at why things are done. And well, I've got time, I'll quickly say. So, I love this. This is brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. When Bride walks in with Father, Bride holds on to the Father's right arm, because going back through history, if the Father didn't like the groom, of course his right arm would have been his sword arm. So the bride had hold of that arm to make sure that the Father couldn't attack the groom. That's the reason why she's on that side. Then on the side going out, leaving the church, she's on the groom's left. So his sword arm is free. So if someone happens to attack the couple, when they're leaving the church and going home, he can actually defend himself because he's got his sword arm free. Those bits, insane. Just insane. Why on earth they still do that in church? No idea. But they do. And these are things they do in the marriage that have no relevance whatsoever to the Bible at all. None. It's for ridiculously stupid reasons. And we still do it, even though we don't use swords now. It's beautiful. It really is. But it's insane. And it's insane that the church goes along with all that stuff. Well, as I say, there's so much in church that is not biblical in any way, shape or form. That they do. Well, as I say, I've said before, the way they train ministers, not biblical. The way they appoint ministers, not biblical. Communion, not biblical. Not the way they do it. Yeah. Yeah, the idea of open prayer. They don't understand the purpose of it, so it's not biblical, is it? Yeah. Everything in church, as I said before, it's a that will do attitude. But the problem is we don't have a that will do God. We don't. And yet, during the walk, actually, Father was helping me to see. Part of the problem is with the church actually believes that God is just like them. That God can't stand anything that could be offensive. And that God wouldn't do anything that could be offensive in their lives. Or bring anything that could be counted as offensive in their lives. That God stands by all that. All this left-wing stuff, that's God. Talking about safe space church and that sort of stuff, that's God. It isn't. God told Abraham to take his son up to the mountain and sacrifice his son. If God told someone to do that now, it would be in the local news, all the churches would be shut down, they'd all turn their backs on God. I was saying to Father, well obviously then this patheticness of church where you can't challenge anyone, you can't show joy, you can't do anything of God in any way, shape or form because people just get offended. So that point about nothing of offence or nothing that can be offensive, that's got to be dealt with. God has to deal with that. And it's most likely that the way God deals with that will be counted as offensive by some. That some people will be highly offended by the way God deals with that. Yeah. Well, it's like, for me, that the pastor made a big deal about me swearing on the video. And it's like, okay. Right, okay. I will make an effort to not do that anymore. But not because doing that is wrong, but because doing that gives people an excuse to dismiss the message. And whatever I said on that video was completely dismissed because I swore. And so, okay, let's take that away. It's going to make it harder for people, therefore, to dismiss, isn't it, the message? And that's the reason to do that. That's the reason why I'm doing that. Why I'm saying, okay, I'm going to try and deal with that now with messages. With the videos is, don't have the rage, don't have that. If there's that, then, do the video. Listen to the video. Take note of the things that matter. Do a video just giving the things that matter without all the swear words or rage. Cool, do that. And then, of course, people are still going to dismiss it. They're going to find some way to dismiss it because that's where they are. Yeah. But then hopefully at some point in time, God will help them to realise that the reason why they dismissed it is about them, not about me. Because at the moment they can see, if there's a video where I'm swearing, they can see that that's about me. They can see that's my fault that they've dismissed that message. But if that's taken out of the equation, then them dismissing it, that's a them issue. And God will hopefully help them to understand that. Yeah. As I say, it's gorgeous the way that God does things. That through this, God has helped me to see little things like that. I did the video the other day talking about the church, and there was no rage, there was no swearing, and I was still talking about issues with the church, and that's brilliant. I love that. But as I say, that's why I've said before that I leave videos like that in, so that people can see the progression. People can see God working. I can still be talking about something pretty much exactly the same in the future, and yet it'll be a lot calmer. There'll be no swearing, and people will be able to see the progression of me going from there to there, and they'll be able to see God doing that, and that's the point. That's the reason for all of it. It's all about pointing to Him. So sometimes there will be mistakes, there will be errors. Leave them in there. Let people see that. Let people see that, I'm not perfect. And when I try and do things my way, it doesn't work. Why would that be so important? To show people when I do things my way, it doesn't work. Because they need to see that when they do things their way, it doesn't work. That's what that's all about. Yeah. Well, if they see, God working in me and me giving control completely over to Him, then hopefully, and they see that working, hopefully they will then do that themselves. Doing these videos is about that. It's about, in some way helping people, because if they see God doing things in me, then they can see that happening in their life as well. Well, because if we've got a church that won't speak about anything that could be offensive, then if God gives me that subject to speak about, I'm going to bring that. I'm not going to be concerned about it. I'm even going to leave swear words in there, even though they're offensive. Why? Because we're in a situation right now where anything offensive can't be involved in church. We can't have that anywhere near church. And so I'm not trying to say let's be offensive, but I'm saying let's not care about being offensive. Let's not care if people are going to take offence to what we're saying or what we're doing, because that's God's job to deal with that. That shouldn't be our concern. We certainly shouldn't be talking about certain subjects because people might get offended, and we certainly shouldn't be not doing something because we're not perfect enough to do it yet. Although, again, I was saying that on that day, when I just said that, yeah, I get that. I'm doing videos on here. People can choose to either listen to it or not. They can have a listen, they can end it. Going in front of a church, different thing completely. Different thing completely, because of the fact that people are coming to church to meet with God. Now, if you want people to be able to do the same in church, or just do the same in church, if they're not happy with what they're saying, to just walk out, okay, they can do that, but pretty soon you're going to have an empty church. Well, you're only going to have people in church that agree with that way of doing things, and that isn't good. So, no, with regards to church, the bar has to be raised a bit bloody higher than someone putting a video online, really. Well, because as soon as I said that, that if people aren't ready, then, what came to mind is, but they're going to say that you said that he wasn't. Yeah, different thing completely. It really is. It should be, at least. I mean, the fact that people in the church might not see that is like, well, that's sad. Really is. So anyway, there you go. I'm going to leave it to it. That'll do you for now. Well, that is basically what the discussion was with God on that walk. So, yeah. It was a good walk. I enjoyed it. So, but that's the thing. Go on walks and, have that clarity where you can speak to God and hopefully hear what he has to say. So there you go. You take care. God bless. I'll speak to you soon. Bye-bye.